Hello and welcome to the first episode of Movie Husbands. My name is Matt.
And my name is Jeff.
And we are husbands
who love movies. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Movie Husbands will be a weekly film discussion series where we'll focus on new release films and also some classic films as well.
And since this is our first video, we thought a great way to get started would be to do a little Q&A. We got a little bowl here of a bunch of questions. And Jeffrey, you want to do the honors?
Sure. What is a movie that you could watch over and over?
I think The Wizard of Oz, without a doubt. It's a classic. That scene where Dorothy comes out of her house into Munchkin Land and it goes from black and white to color. I mean, that's like one of the most iconic scenes of all time in a movie. It's a classic film. I can watch it over and over for the music and the characters. The Scarecrow is one of my favorite characters in movie history because he's an optimist. He's upbeat. He keeps going no matter what. So I love that film. I could watch it over and over. I've seen it over and over. You gave me the Blu-ray for Christmas one year, and that's it. What is the best movie you've seen this year?
I guess it would be I'm Thinking of Ending Things. That's probably my favorite movie of 2020 so far. There are a bunch of acclaimed films that I haven't seen yet, but that's really the one that sticks out to me just because it's such a puzzle, but it's dealing with all of the things that I really care about in movies, like anxiety about death, anxiety about identity, all kind of wrapped in this intense surrealism that you really have to unpack for a while. And I'm a big Charlie Kaufman fan, so it's not really a surprise, I guess. And I've been waiting for him to make a film for a long time. So it was well worth the wait, I think.
Yeah, I love how that movie starts out pretty sane in a sense. And then things start to get a little crazy and like things start to not make sense.
Yeah, and I think that film is so richly detailed. Like it really feels, there are all these little details that morph and come back and just have different contexts throughout the film that you keep noticing the more you watch it. I think I've seen it 3 times now. And all of the sound design, there are all of these little things that really kind of bring the plot home, but also whatever he's trying to say.
Yeah, there would be. I remember there's like things that happen, like the picture frames, the books on the shelf, like what the names are on the binder of the book.
The Band-Aid on David Thewlis's head keeps moving too.
The amount of detail in that film is just kind of like everything they pay attention to, and all the little things that you'll pick out on a second and third showing. It's pretty astounding.
What is one of the funniest movies you have seen?
Oh gosh, I would say Bridesmaids, hand down.
Bridesmaids is funny.
I love the scene where Rose Byrne and Kristen Wiig are at the party and they're both getting up to the mic and they're talking back and forth and the conversation goes on forever. I think that's just a great example of just the comedy in that film. It just kind of scenes awkwardly extend longer than you would expect them to.
It's so painful.
It's so painful.
But it's so funny.
Oh gosh, you just sit there and you cringe, but you laugh at the same time. And you're like, how is this reality? Why is this reality? But it's there and it's reality.
What is the longest movie you have seen?
All right, so this is a little story for you guys because Jeffrey came up to me one day and he's like, how do you feel about watching a 6-hour Swedish film?
It's only 5 hours.
Oh, okay, 5 hours. Oh, it's short, so many minutes. So this movie's called Fanny and Alexander, and it's a 5-hour Swedish movie. And I was actually really impressed by this movie. The first part takes place during Christmas, and it has just like this vibe of Christmas that was so unique and felt so much like it did in childhood to me. And I remember watching that and feeling the same way. Of course, the rest of the movie, that whole thing pretty much goes to shit. And all those feelings are gone, and it turns into a very depressive movie.
That's a hopeful movie. You have to see Bergman's other movies if you want to see depressing movies.
You did tell me that would be the best one, like the most optimistic one you would show me.
That was pretty optimistic.
It does, ends up, on an optimistic note. Of course, there's kind of like tragedy built into that, living at the church with the priest and the type of guy he ends up being. It's interesting how the movie starts out kind of centered on the entire family, and you slowly, as the movie progresses, kind of focus more and more on these children. Oh, favorite movie sequel?
I mean, it's a really boring answer, but it's Godfather Part II. It furthers all of the storylines from the first film. It furthers all the character development of the first film. And it somehow makes them all more impactful than they were in the first film. And I really like the first Godfather. It's a great movie. But the second one feels like high art in the way that the first one doesn't. The first one you can almost confuse for a mob movie. It's a movie that's actually about a person's kind of descent into hell. But you could confuse it and watch it for a fun mob movie. The second one, there's no confusing it. The second one, if you don't feel awful when that film ends, then you're not watching it right.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie sequel, actually?
I do. I think my favorite movie sequel is definitely Before Sunset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because as I watched that trilogy, Before Sunrise was always kind of my favorite. It's the optimistic movie. I'm very much an optimist. I love how they're falling in love, and you kind of experience that. Of course, lots of those realities change as they do in relationships.
Yeah.
The first one's kind of blind to that, but that's because of the time in which it was shot. That was the experiences that they all had. As Richard Linklater likes to do, is that they get into a room and they all kind of write this film together, and based on the experiences that they're going through life at the time. So I think that was very much a representation of where they were in their lives. And so I love how they kind of go through these extreme segments of dialogue.
Yeah.
The scene lasts like 10 or 15 minutes, and they've remembered every single line without a cut. That's one of those things that movie just does so well.
I know a lot of people that feel like the second movie is kind of jarring because the first film is such full-fledged optimism. And the second film, I don't think it's pessimistic, but it has these really raw moments that are not there in the first film. And that's what I like so much about the second film.
Yeah, I think that's true. But also what works for me in that sense, being the optimist, is that by the end of that movie, when Celine takes out her guitar and she's singing her little song to him, and you see the reaction on his face.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this isn't over yet. And then the movie just ends, and you're like, I want to see what happens next.
I know. In the third movie, he says, "I ruined my life for the way that you sing."
Oh, man, it gets so bad.
Yeah.
But it's also so good.
What is the worst movie you have seen this year?
Oh, without a doubt, Artemis Fowl.
Bad.
Disney, you disappointed me with that one.
Bad.
I think the plot just completely fell apart. It was so been there, done that. But everything that revolved around it was so cliche. And I never really felt like any weight on the characters. I never felt like I was concerned for their well-being. I just kind of, right when that movie started, I knew how it was going to end.
I couldn't even tell you what that movie was about, like from beginning to end, plot-wise.
Yeah.
Because it jumps to just random, we're in a mansion, then we're in like a fairy underworld, and the fairies are coming. Like it has no way of like bridging all these different things that are going on. They just kind of happen.
What is your favorite foreign film?
So it would probably be Stalker, the Tarkovsky film. So Stalker is a film that was made in 1979 by Andrei Tarkovsky. He was making films in the Soviet Union, and he was exploring his Christianity and his spirituality in his films. And the Soviet Union didn't really like the ideas that many of his films were showing or exploring. So he had a lot of trouble getting films made. He actually ended up making his last two films in exile or outside of the Soviet Union with different funding. But Stalker is a science fiction film that shows people going into what's called the zone. And the zone has somewhere called the room, and the room is supposed to grant your innermost wish. But I think more important than that, it really explores faith. And I've never seen a film that uses imagery to explore faith or to explore its big ideas in such a beautiful way. Like that film really feels like a miracle. It feels like everything was just put in place only for them to film it, and just the imagery is just unbelievable. And you've seen that film.
No, yeah. So I love that film. I think what he does such a great job of is in the cinematography, like you kind of get a sense of just how lonely these characters are. And even at the end, when they're kind of at this gateway and the rain is pouring down and they're kind of all huddled together,
I remember being so engrossed with that film the first time I saw it, actually, because it really brings you to another place. Like, it feels strange to say a 2 hour and 45 minute, you know, a foreign film that's like really quiet and has these characters just like espousing philosophy the whole time is something that is really gripping, but it is. I remember just sitting there like this and just feeling transported. What is the last film that really struck you?
I would say we watched Another Year this year, and that film came out in 2010, but that was just such a good movie. I remember just the character of Mary. She's kind of going through her life, and she does not have her shit together at all. Mm-hmm. And this movie kind of like, you think it's about the older couple as the movie starts out. I think Tom and Jerry are the names, yeah. And then as the movie progresses, it slowly kind of centers more and more about Mary. And you kind of, she's kind of going through her life. She's getting older. She doesn't really know where she's going, what she's doing. She wants to fit in with all these people that kind of have their shit together. And she's kind of like making up reasons and excuses for why her life is so bad, which kind of perpetuates her being in such a bad place in her life.
I think what I love about that film so much is the naturalism in the dialogue and the writing. The writing feels exactly like you're sitting at a kitchen table with people you know. That's how natural that film feels. And it's really difficult to do that in films. And Mike Leigh is definitely, that director of that film, is one of the best at that. What is one of your favorite animated movies?
I mean, you know me. I love so many animated films. I think WALL-E from Pixar is by far one of my favorite Pixar movies. I think just that they can create this character, and within 5 minutes, you're like, I love WALL-E. He's the cutest thing ever. And I love how Pixar makes these films that just end up being so much more than they have to be. Mm-hmm. You could be an adult, you could be a child, and you could get something from these movies. You know, if you're an adult, you see kind of, you know, the B&L like corporate enterprise that's kind of like putting the planet to trash. Mm-hmm. And if you're a kid, you're gonna get like cute little Wally and Eve and the little cockroach that follows them around. So I think just like Inside Out, it's just like the movie just ends up teaching you something that whether you're a kid or adult, you'll get something from. And it's something that a Pixar movie doesn't have to do, but it does anyways. And there's so much better movies for it. All right, well, we are out of questions, and I am almost out of wine. So I think we're going to end it right there. But if you guys like this video, please feel free to subscribe. Check out our next video, which is coming next week. We will be doing a review of
Mank, the new film by David Fincher, who hasn't made a film in 5 years. It drops on Netflix next week, so we are pretty excited for that.